Your wedding day is supposed to be the happiest day of your life. That's what everyone says, right? The fairy tale ending you've been dreaming about since you were a little girl. For me, it became the day I learned that the two people I trusted most in the world had betrayed me in the cruelest way possible. And the worst part, I found out 30 minutes before I was supposed to walk down the aisle. My name is Sarah. I'm 41 years old, and this happened 3 years ago. What I'm about to tell you sounds like something from a movie, but I lived every devastating second of it. I met Daniel when I was 35. I'd been single for a few years after a difficult breakup, and I'd honestly given up on finding someone. Then one day, a friend dragged me to a charity fundraiser, and there he was. Daniel was 37, a successful architect, tall and handsome in that classic way that makes you do a double take. But what got me was how he made me laugh. We talked for 3 hours straight that night, and by the end of it, I knew something had shifted in my world. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. It was perfect, romantic, everything I'd secretly hoped for, but never admitted out loud. He took me to the beach where we'd had our first real date and got down on one knee as the sun set. I said yes before he even finished asking the question. My younger sister, Michelle, was thrilled when I told her. Michelle was 3 years younger than me, 35 at the time, and we'd always been close. Growing up, we were best friends. We shared clothes, secrets, dreams. When our parents divorced when I was 16 and Michelle was 13, we leaned on each other. We promised we'd always have each other's backs no matter what. Michelle had struggled more than me in the relationship department. She'd had a string of boyfriends who treated her badly, guys who cheated or used her or just disappeared without explanation. I'd held her through countless breakups, reassured her that she deserved better, promised her that someday she'd find someone worthy of her. She always said she was happy for me and Daniel, that seeing us together gave her hope that good men existed. I asked Michelle to be my maid of honor. Of course I did. She was my sister, my best friend, the person who knew me better than anyone. She cried when I asked her, told me she was honored, that she'd make sure my wedding day was absolutely perfect. We spent months planning together. Dress shopping, cake tasting, venue touring. It was the bonding experience I'd always imagined we'd have. Daniel got along great with Michelle too. Sometimes the three of us would hang out together, grabbing dinner or watching movies at our apartment. I loved that my fiancé and my sister liked each other. It felt like my family was coming together exactly the way it was supposed to. I never once thought to question how well they got along. Why would I? I trusted them both completely. The wedding was planned for a Saturday in June at a beautiful vineyard about an hour outside the city. We'd booked it a year in advance. 200 guests, an outdoor ceremony overlooking the vines, a reception in the estate's grand hall. I dreamed about every detail for months. My dress was ivory lace with a long train. The flowers were white roses and peonies. The cake was 3 tiers with delicate sugar flowers. Everything was perfect. The night before the wedding, we had the rehearsal and rehearsal dinner. It's tradition that the bride and groom don't see each other the night before, so Daniel stayed at a hotel with his groomsmen, and I stayed at the bridal suite at the vineyard with Michelle and my 2 bridesmaids. We drank champagne, laughed about old memories, talked about how tomorrow would be the best day of my life. Michelle seemed off that night, now that I think back on it. She was quieter than usual, kept checking her phone, seemed distracted. When I asked if she was okay, she said she was just tired from all the wedding preparations. I believed her. I had no reason not to. We all went to bed around midnight. I barely slept, too excited and nervous about the next day. I kept thinking about walking down the aisle, seeing Daniel's face, saying the vows we'd written together. I'd finally found my person. In less than 12 hours, I'd be his wife. The next morning started early. Hair and makeup artists arrived at 7. Photographers came at 8 to capture the getting ready photos. My bridesmaids were laughing and drinking mimosas while we transformed into our wedding looks. I felt like I was floating, like I was living in a dream. Michelle was quiet again. She barely touched her mimosa. She kept disappearing to the bathroom, and when she came back, her eyes looked red like she'd been crying. I pulled her aside around 9:30 and asked what was wrong. "Nothing," she said. "I'm just emotional. My big sister's getting married." I hugged her and told her I loved her. She hugged me back so tight it almost hurt. I should have known then that something was wrong. But I was so wrapped up in the day, so focused on the wedding, that I missed all the signs. At 10:15, I put on my dress. The ceremony was scheduled for 11. My bridesmaids helped me with the buttons, arranged my veil, made sure everything was perfect. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. I looked happy. I looked like a bride. I looked like someone whose life was about to begin. At 10:30, there was a knock on the bridal suite door. One of the bridesmaids answered it. I heard her say, "Michelle, what's wrong?" in a concerned voice. I turned around to see Michelle standing in the doorway. She was fully dressed in her maid of honor dress, hair and makeup done, but her face was completely white. She looked like she might pass out. "Sarah," she said. Her voice was shaking. "I need to talk to you, alone, right now." My heart started pounding. "What's wrong? Did something happen? Is it Daniel? Is he okay?" "Please," she begged. "Just come with me. 5 minutes, please." I looked at my bridesmaids, who looked as confused as I felt. "Give us a minute," I said. Michelle grabbed my hand and pulled me out of the bridal suite and down the hall to an empty room. She closed the door behind us and leaned against it like she was trying to keep the world out. "Michelle, you're scaring me. What's going on?" She was crying now, tears ruining her carefully applied makeup. "Sarah, I have to tell you something. I should have told you last night or weeks ago or never at all, but I can't let you walk down that aisle without knowing." "Knowing what?" She took a deep breath. And then she said the words that shattered everything. "I slept with Daniel last night after the rehearsal dinner. When everyone went to bed, he texted me and asked me to meet him, and I did, and we slept together. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But I had to tell you before you say I do." The room tilted. Actually tilted. I had to grab the back of a chair to keep from falling. "What?" "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I know it's the worst thing I could have done. I know I'm a terrible person. But I couldn't let you marry him without knowing. He's not who you think he is." I couldn't process what she was saying. The words didn't make sense. "You slept with Daniel, my Daniel, last night. The night before our wedding. Yes, you're lying." My voice didn't sound like mine. "This is some kind of sick joke. You're pranking me. On my wedding day." "I wish I was," she whispered, "but I'm not. It happened. And I'm so sorry." I stared at her, this woman who looked like my sister but couldn't possibly be. My sister would never do this. My sister loved me. My sister promised she'd always have my back. "How long?" I asked. My voice was eerily calm. "What? How long has this been going on? Because this wasn't just last night, was it?" She looked down at her hands. 6 months. 6 months. Half a year. Well, I was planning my wedding, picking out flowers and tasting cakes and writing vows. My fiancé was sleeping with my sister, and my sister was sleeping with my fiancé. "Why?" The word came out broken. "I don't know," she cried. "It started by accident. We were working on the wedding favors at your apartment one night when you were working late, and we started talking, and then we were kissing, and then it just kept happening. I tried to stop it. I really did. But I have feelings for him, Sarah, real feelings. And he has feelings for me too. I felt like I was going to vomit. Get out, Sarah, please, get out, I screamed. Get out of this room right now. She ran out, still crying. The door slammed behind her, and I was alone in my wedding dress, 30 minutes before I was supposed to get married, trying to understand how my entire life had just imploded. If you're still watching this, thank you for being here. I know this is intense. If you're tuning in from somewhere in the world right now, please leave a comment and let me know where you're from. Knowing I'm not alone in sharing these stories makes it a little easier. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. Your support means everything. I don't know how long I stood there. It could have been 2 minutes or 20. Time had stopped meaning anything. There was a gentle knock on the door, and one of my bridesmaids, Jessica, peeked her head in. Sarah, honey, are you okay? Michelle came back crying and locked herself in the bathroom. What happened? I need you to get Daniel, I said. My voice sounded dead. Tell him to come here, right now. And don't tell anyone else anything. Jessica looked terrified but nodded and left. 5 minutes later, there was another knock. I opened the door to find Daniel standing there in his tuxedo, looking concerned and confused. Sarah, what's wrong? Jessica said it was an emergency. I pulled him into the room and closed the door. He reached for me, probably to comfort me, but I stepped back. Don't touch me. What's going on? Did something happen? Michelle just told me that you slept with her last night. Is it true? His face went completely white. All the blood drained out of it in an instant, and I knew. Even before he spoke, I knew. Sarah, I can explain. Is it true? I screamed. Yes, he whispered. But it's not what you think. How long? What? How long have you been sleeping with my sister? And don't you dare lie to me right now. He ran his hands through his hair, destroying the careful styling. A few months. It was a mistake. A huge mistake. I love you, Sarah. I want to marry you. Last night was it was stupid. It didn't mean anything. Get out. Sarah, please, we can work through this. Get out. I was shaking so hard I could barely stand. The wedding is off. We're done. Get your things and leave before I call security. You don't mean that. You're upset, which you have every right to be, but we can fix this. There's nothing to fix. I screamed. You slept with my sister multiple times, including the night before our wedding. What exactly do you think we're going to fix? He tried to approach me again. I love you. I made a terrible mistake, but I love you. Let me make this right. The only thing you can do right now is leave. Get out of my sight. I never want to see you again. He stood there for a moment, looking like he was going to argue, then finally turned and walked out. I heard him in the hallway, heard one of my bridesmaids ask what was happening, heard his footsteps getting farther away. I sank to the floor, my dress billowing around me like a cloud. I was supposed to be walking down the aisle in 20 minutes. 200 people were sitting outside waiting for a wedding that wasn't going to happen. Jessica came back in, took one look at me on the floor, and knelt beside me. What do you need? I need someone to tell everyone the wedding is canceled. I need someone to make sure Daniel leaves. And I need someone to get Michelle out of here before I do something I'll regret. Okay, she said calmly. I'll handle it. Do you want me to tell people why? Tell them the groom slept with the maid of honor the night before the wedding. I'm done protecting them. Jessica hugged me, then left to handle the disaster. I sat on that floor in my beautiful dress that I'd spent months choosing, and I let myself fall apart. I'd lost my fiancé and my sister in the same morning. The wedding I dreamed about was canceled. The future I'd imagined was gone. And I had to somehow find a way to stand up and face 200 people who'd come to watch me get married. My other bridesmaid, Rachel, came in after a while. She helped me out of my dress and into regular clothes. She didn't ask questions, just held me when I cried and helped me pack up my things. Outside, I could hear the chaos of guests being told the wedding was off, confused voices and shocked gasps, and the sound of people leaving. My mother arrived at some point. She was crying, asking what happened, saying she'd killed Daniel and Michelle both. I couldn't explain it, couldn't put into words what they'd done. Rachel told her while I sat there numb. We found out later that Daniel had left immediately, taking his groomsmen with him. Michelle had apparently locked herself in the bathroom and refused to come out until someone threatened to break down the door. She left through a side exit to avoid the guests. The venue staff were incredibly kind. They helped clear everything out, packed up the decorations we'd spent months planning, dealt with the catering and the flowers and all the details I couldn't handle. I wrote them a check for the full amount, even though the wedding never happened. It seemed like the least I could do. I went back to the apartment I shared with Daniel. Everything was exactly as we'd left it the day before. His coffee mug was still in the sink from yesterday morning. Wedding cards were piled on the kitchen table, gifts we'd never open. Photos of us were on every surface, smiling and happy and completely unaware of what was coming. I packed his things that night, all of them, threw them in garbage bags and boxes and left them in the hallway, changed the locks, sent him a text that said simply, "Your stuff is outside. Don't contact me again." He tried to call dozens of times. Left voicemails begging me to talk to him, saying he'd made a terrible mistake, that he loved me, that we could get through this. I deleted them all without listening to most of them. Michelle tried to contact me too. Texts, calls, emails. She sent me a letter a week later, pages and pages of apologies and explanations. How it had started innocently, how she tried to stop it, how she knew she was a terrible person, but she couldn't help her feelings. How she told me because she couldn't let me marry someone who would betray me. That part made me laugh, a bitter, broken sound. She was positioning herself as the hero of this story. She'd saved me from marrying a cheater. Never mind that she was the person he cheated with. Never mind that she'd betrayed me just as completely as he had. I didn't respond to any of her messages. What was there to say? Sorry for sleeping with my fiancé repeatedly and only telling me on my wedding day. Sorry for destroying the most important relationship in my life. Sorry I wasn't going to fix this. The hardest part was dealing with everyone else. Friends who'd been at the wedding, family members who wanted to know what happened, co-workers who'd seen my excitement for months. I had to tell the story over and over. My fiancé cheated on me with my sister. Yes, that sister. Yes, really. No, I don't want to talk about it. Some people took sides. My mother stopped speaking to Michelle entirely, said she'd raised her better than that. My aunt tried to play peacemaker, saying family was family and we needed to forgive each other. I stopped talking to that aunt too. Other friends quietly disappeared, either because they didn't know how to handle the drama or because they'd been closer to Daniel than I'd realized. I went to therapy. I needed help processing the double betrayal, the loss of both my partner and my sister in one devastating blow. My therapist helped me understand that their actions weren't about me. They were about their own selfishness, their own inability to control their impulses, their own failures as human beings. But understanding that didn't make it hurt less. I'd been 200 feet from the altar when my world ended. I'd been minutes away from saying vows I'd spent weeks writing. I'd been wearing my dream dress and holding my bouquet when my sister told me she'd slept with my fiancé. Before we go further, I want to ask something. If this story is resonating with you, if you've experienced betrayal or know someone who has, please leave a like on this video. It helps more people find these stories, and maybe someone out there needs to know they're not alone. These experiences are devastating, but we survive them. and sharing them helps. About 2 months after the canceled wedding, I heard through mutual friends that Daniel and Michelle were officially together. They'd moved in together. They were posting photos on social media, looking happy and in love, like they hadn't destroyed my life to be together. That hurt in a new way. It confirmed that this wasn't just a mistake or a moment of weakness. They actually had feelings for each other, real enough to build a relationship on, real enough to sacrifice me for. I wanted to hate them. I tried to hate them. But mostly I just felt sad. Sad that my sister, who I'd loved and protected my whole life, could betray me so completely. Sad that the man I planned to marry could cheat on me with someone so close to me. Sad that I'd wasted 2 years of my life on someone who didn't deserve me. I threw myself into work. I'm a graphic designer, and I started taking on extra freelance projects to fill the hours I would have spent being married. I traveled to places Daniel and I had talked about visiting together. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with during my relationship. I started building a new life, piece by piece. About 6 months after the canceled wedding, my mother told me that Michelle was pregnant. She'd called our mother to share the news, apparently hoping to reconcile. My mother hung up on her. I felt a weird sense of vindication hearing that. It confirmed what I'd suspected, that their relationship wasn't just an affair. They were actually building a life together, having a baby together, playing house while I was still picking up the pieces they'd shattered. But I also realized I didn't care as much as I thought I would. Their relationship, their baby, their future, none of it had anything to do with me anymore. They'd made their choices. They'd have to live with them. I started dating again about a year after the canceled wedding. Nothing serious at first, just testing the waters, remembering what it felt like to be valued by someone who wasn't lying to me. I was cautious, probably overly so. Every man I dated, I found myself wondering if he was hiding something, if he was the type to cheat, if I could really trust him. My therapist told me that was normal. Trust is hard to rebuild after it's been shattered so completely. But she also reminded me that not everyone is Daniel or Michelle. Most people are capable of basic decency and loyalty. I met someone about 18 months ago. His name is Marcus. He's a high school history teacher, divorced himself, with a teenage daughter from his previous marriage. He's kind and patient and honest. When I told him my story on our third date, expecting him to run for the hills, he just took my hand and said, "I'm sorry that happened to you. You deserve better. We've been together for over a year now." It's not perfect, and I'm still working through trust issues, but it's real. It's built on honesty instead of lies. And that makes all the difference. I haven't spoken to Michelle since my wedding day. She tried to reach out a few times over the years, especially after her daughter was born. She sent me a photo once, said she wanted me to meet my niece. I deleted it immediately. I'm not ready for that. I don't know if I'll ever be ready for that. My mother sees Michelle occasionally now. Not often, and not with my blessing, but she says she can't completely cut off her daughter. I understand, even if I don't agree. She's careful never to mention Michelle around me or show me photos of the baby. Daniel tried to reach out on what would have been our 3-year wedding anniversary. A long email about how sorry he was, how he'd grown as a person, how he hoped I'd found happiness. I didn't respond. There was nothing he could say that would change what he did. Looking back now, I can see signs I missed. The way Michelle would get quiet when Daniel entered the room. The way he'd check his phone constantly and angle it away from me. The way they volunteered to work on wedding stuff together while I was at work. All the little clues I ignored because I trusted them. People ask me sometimes if I blame myself for not seeing it. The answer is no. I trusted the people I loved, and they betrayed that trust. That's on them, not me. I wasn't naive for trusting my sister and my fiancé. They were terrible for abusing that trust. I've learned a lot about myself in the past 3 years. I've learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I survived something that should have destroyed me, and I came out the other side still standing. I've learned that family isn't always blood. The friends who stood by me, who held me when I cried, who helped me rebuild my life, those are my real family. I've learned that betrayal changes you. I'm not the same person I was on my wedding day. I'm more cautious now, slower to trust, quicker to protect myself. Some people would call that damage. I call it wisdom. And I've learned that you can plan your whole life around someone and they can still betray you. But that doesn't mean you stop planning, stop dreaming, stop hoping. It just means you choose more carefully who you share those plans with. The hardest part, even now, is the holidays. Family gatherings are complicated when half your family isn't speaking to each other. My mother tries to keep the peace, but it's an impossible situation. I usually spend major holidays with Marcus and his daughter now. It's easier than navigating the minefield of family drama. But there are moments when I miss Michelle. Not the person she turned out to be, but the person I thought she was. My best friend, my confidant, the person who knew me better than anyone. I grieve that relationship sometimes, the loss of a sister I realize I never really had. My therapist says that's normal too. You can mourn what you thought you had even while accepting it was never real. The sister I loved wouldn't have done what Michelle did, which means the sister I loved was either an illusion or she changed into someone I don't recognize. Either way, I lost her. Before we finish, I want to ask one more thing. If this story moved you, if you understand what it's like to be betrayed by people you love, please share this video. Leave a comment with your own story if you're comfortable. Let's build a community where we can talk about these painful truths without judgment. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. These stories matter and your support helps me keep sharing them. I still have my wedding dress. It's in the back of my closet in its garment bag, untouched since that day. I can't bring myself to throw it away or sell it. It feels like evidence somehow, proof that I wasn't crazy to believe in love and loyalty and the promises people make. Marcus asked me recently if I'd ever want to get married again. To him specifically, the question terrified me. Not because I don't love him, but because the last time I tried to get married, it ended in the worst moment of my life. But I'm thinking about it because I realize now that what Daniel and Michelle did doesn't have to define the rest of my life. They took one wedding day from me. They don't get to take all the future ones too. The truth is, betrayal like this doesn't have a neat resolution. There's no moment where everything suddenly makes sense or stops hurting. You just learn to carry it differently. Some days it's a boulder, some days it's a pebble, and some days, if you're really lucky, you forget it's there at all. I'm grateful for the life I'm building with Marcus. It's different from what I imagined with Daniel, but different doesn't mean worse. It's honest and real, and built on a foundation of actual trust instead of the illusion of it. My mother asked me last week if I'd ever forgive Michelle. I told her I don't know. Forgiveness is complicated. I don't actively hate her anymore, which I suppose is progress. But forgiveness, real forgiveness that requires something from her, I'm not sure she's capable of giving. It requires genuine remorse, not just regret at being caught. It requires understanding the full magnitude of what she did and why it was so devastating. Her telling me on my wedding day, that wasn't to help me. That was to ease her own guilt. If she really wanted to help me, she would have told me 6 months earlier when it started. Or better yet, she wouldn't have slept with my fiancé at all. I've realized that's what bothers me most. Not just that they betrayed me, but how they did it. If Daniel had come to me and said he'd developed feelings for someone else and wanted to end our engagement, it would have hurt. But at least it would have been honest. Instead, they snuck around behind my back for months. They kissed me and hugged me and helped plan a wedding they knew wasn't going to happen. They let me spend thousands of dollars on a venue and a dress and flowers for a ceremony they'd already destroyed. And Michelle telling me 30 minutes before the wedding instead of the night before or weeks before that timing wasn't accidental. Part of me thinks she wanted the drama, wanted the moment where she was the one with the power to destroy everything. Or maybe she wanted me to marry him anyway, to prove that I loved him more than I hated what they'd done. I'll never know. And honestly, I don't want to. What I do know is that I survived. I stood in that room in my wedding dress, heard the worst news of my life, and I survived it. I walked out of that venue with my head high. I faced 200 guests who'd come to watch me get married, and I survived their pity and their questions. I picked up the pieces of my shattered life and I built something new. That's not the ending I wanted for my story, but it's the ending I got, and I'm making peace with it, one day at a time. To anyone out there who's been betrayed by someone they loved, I see you. Your pain is real. Your anger is justified. And you will survive this even when it feels impossible. You'll build a new life, one that's stronger because it's built on truth instead of lies. And to anyone planning a wedding, trust your instincts. If something feels off, if someone seems distant, if you find yourself making excuses for strange behavior, pay attention. I ignored so many warning signs because I didn't want to believe what they meant. Don't make my mistake. Thank you for listening to my story, for being here, for letting me share something so painful and so personal. You are enough. You always were. And anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve a place in your life, no matter who they are.